Morning with a lot on my mind as far as how things have gotten the way that they are. And of course, one of the first things that popped into my mind was the Federal Reserve. So I feel like that's when things started in the US, with us being controlled and giving up, I guess, our freedoms by allowing these families to monopolize all of our resources. So I'm going to get my glasses on here because I've been doing a lot of research, and one of the things I had done a huge paper on the Federal Reserve, and so I went back through a lot of the materials and trying remembering dates and things like that. So, we go back all the way to the early 1900s, right? Where in like 1903, the Bankers Trust basically was set up by these 8 families. Okay, and now this is before the Federal Reserve. And then, there's a whole lot of history, but then what ended up happening is that in 1913, the creation of the Federal Reserve started happening. And basically what that did, and, I'm going to just break it down into layman's terms. So it tied these 8 families to the U.S. military. Okay, so basically you had these 8 families who, in my opinion, were very mafia-like. And when that was going on, they all of a sudden attached themselves to this military force that is able to battle other countries. Kind of, it's like they were their enforcers for this 8 families. Okay, so I'm going to try and not butcher the names of these people, but it was Goldman Sachs, the Rockefellers, the Lehmans, Kuhn and Loeb's, which is of New York, it's still a huge banking system also, still going on, along with these others. Rothschilds of Paris and London, Warburgs of Hamburg, Lazards of Paris, and Israel Moussis of Rome. With the ability of using the U.S. military as their collectors of debt, like the Morgan Chase and Citibank formed an international lending syndicate. So basically, they were able to loan out money, and if other countries or people did not pay it back, the U.S. government would go after them. Fun. President Woodrow Wilson, he's the one who signed in the Federal Reserve Act, which I'm not going to get into his entire history, but it is definitely he's in it, right? He's involved with all these families. And so the title and the name of these before people really knew what was happening, they had already taken control. So we call them now like the 4 horsemen, okay? And the 4 horsemen don't just include the banking systems, okay? So it's Bank of America, JP Morgan Chase, Citigroup, and Wells Fargo. Those are now the names of these banks that we use today, right? Anyway, the 4 horsemen. They also monopolize the oil industry. So they own these same companies under the Federal Reserve, now titled, right? They own Exxon, Mobil, Royal Dutch, Shell, PB, Chevron, and Texaco. I mean, think about that. So there's your oil monopoly, right? So they own all of that. And then they monopolize and take over the global economy by, not just with the oil, right? They go into, spreading into the media, okay? They go into, okay, I'll just focus on the media, okay? This is what they own. And this is today, this has gone on for a long time. Let's see. Major stockholders of the following television holdings. NBC includes 13 television stations, 28% of U.S. households, NBC, Network News, The Today Show, Nightly News, Tom Brokaw, Meet the Press, Dateline NBC, NBC News at Sunrise, CNBC Business Television, MSNBC 24-hour cable and internet news service, co-owned by NBC and Microsoft, Court TV, owned with Time Warner, Bravo 50%, A&E 25%, History Channel 25%. This itself gives control of the American people what they see and hear, right? So these companies who own all the oil, and who own and distribute our money and decide what our economy really does, right? A lot of people don't even know what the Federal Reserve does. Sorry, I'm kind of jumping around because I got so flustered this morning. But I'm gonna give the definition of the Federal Reserve, and then I'll go back into the other things that are monopolized by these organizations, these companies that now are backed by the U.S. military. Okay, so a central bank regulates the level of money supply within a country. Through monetary policy, a central bank can undertake actions that follow an expansion or contractionary policy. Expansionary policies involve the increase in money supply through measures such as open market operations, where the central bank purchases short-term treasuries with newly created money, thus injecting money into the circulation. Conversely, a contractionary policy, I don't know why I can't pronounce that, would involve the selling of the treasuries, removing money from the circulation of economy. Again, this is all run and done by, now there's not just the 8 families, there's the 13, banking facilities that are actually involved. Let's see here. So, okay. So back to now that you know what the Federal Reserve is actually supposed to do, and they determine inflation and all these other things, right? They're the ones who get to decide all that. I guess that control the money. The 8 families had been running. So they had tried. So these families, the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds in particular, had tried to do this same thing in other countries. European countries, they just kept kicking them out. They would loan money and then try and take over, that's another thing that these banking systems have done. So that's how they were able to force in the Federal Reserve, is that they had loaned the United States all this money, these big high family, that had it all, and basically take control, manipulating numbers, and a lot of emotional debates, obviously, from both sides, but they ended up winning. Let's see, the other things that they own, which this is, I guess, it's just shocking to me. So the other companies under Rockefeller is a subsidiary as well, the Rockefeller Foundation, which again is all tied to these same families. Exxon, Mobil, Chevron, Texaco, PB, Amoco, Marathon Oil, Freeport, McMoran, Quaker Oats, ASARCO, United, Delta, Northwest, International Harvest, Xerox, Boeing, Westinghouse, Hewlett-Packard, Honeywell, International Paper, Pfizer, TAG, Motorola, Monsanto, Union Carabao, and General Foods. So you think about that. So they're controlling the oil, the food, the media, what else, right? You go into all of these different things and you're like, well, how is this even happening, right? How did this, and basically it goes back to World War I, right? When you look at these companies and what they hold for each citizen, right? They are the controlling factor. Yeah, it's sad. It sucks. Because it's like, it was happening, it happened such a long time ago that most people don't even know that this is still going on. Like, they just hand down. So after 3 generations of just this going on, which now it's been a lot more, it's just what is, you learn as a kid, there's only 2 things in this world that you have to do, and that's die and pay taxes. Bullshit, right? Because this is, they're stealing from us, right? That was another thing that I looked up today. And again, I know I've talked about this before, but they collect over $3 trillion a year in tax revenue in the United States. And you tell me, does any of its citizens have a clue how that is spent? We should be at least in somewhat of control of our finances, right? Like, we check our own checkbooks, but yet we're giving them 25% of our income and saying, okay, we're not going to double check you. We don't know what's going on. Go ahead and lose trillions of dollars and then stick it up our butts with these masks and telling us that we've got to get mandates on vaccines and blah, 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 right? Because you can see now where all these families are associated and involved, okay? So basically what they did is they didn't just create the Federal Reserve. When they took it, they created a debt system. Like people, it's not just a money system, it is literally a debt system. That's what America has through the Federal Reserve. Okay? So, let's see. Okay, now this was in 2016. The federal government spent $25.9 billion on interest payments, more than double the amount that was spent 2 years prior. So basically what they're doing is they're borrowing money that they don't need to, right? And then the taxpayers are paying off these tremendous loans that are acquiring huge amounts of interest that are still going back into the pockets of the incorporated investors that are running our Federal Reserve. I mean, it's like, I can't even believe that this has been going on as long as it has. It's just completely, it's just completely unacceptable. And, you know, people that talk about President Kennedy, he was not a superhero. He may have been wanting to do some things for the public, but the reason that they assassinated him, in my opinion, is because he wanted to hold the Federal Reserve in accountability, right? This was all going on, you know, at the Treasury Department, and different things had gone and progressed so that they had more and more power, right? So Kennedy's Executive Order 11110 gave the Treasury Department the explicit authority to issue silver certificates against any silver bullion, silver or standard silver dollars in the Treasury. And so, not interfering with the Federal Reserve or control over the creation of money was definitely a part of why, again, I think that Kennedy was assassinated. Let's see. Jerome H. Powell became the chairman of the Board of Governors on February 5th, 2018. He ties to the banking industry, confirming his position. But again, this provides such a bias that should be considered a conflict of interest, and it just runs throughout this whole thing. You know, I guess if we take a look again at who's running our money, when we're paying taxes, where is it going? Again, we check our own checkbooks. We analyze where our money is going, except for when it's going to the government, because we somehow think we don't have control or power over that. That is not true. We should be holding them accountable. We should be holding our states accountable. We should be knowing, and it should be public information, which it is, but to actually go through a 90-page agreement, which is just complete crap, because that's not how they do it. They have departments, right? So you'll have, in a federal agency that's putting together bills or laws or statistics, you'll have 20 different individuals put a piece in, and then you have one or two people that put it all together, mush it all together to where it's semi-coherent. Nobody's really going to read it, so it doesn't matter that much. And then it comes up with these huge bills that just basically confuse the common man, because we're not taught, again, anything about our judicial systems or anything about the laws or how they work, right? We're just told what to do, subservient. And it's kind of one of those things that I think if we look and keep depending on the people who keep bringing us into these convoluted and scary and misrepresented I guess situations. And we're not just talking about the pandemic now. We're talking about our taxes and how, you know, we pay taxes when we're paid. Then we pay taxes when we buy something. And then we pay taxes again on anything that's
considered, what is it, a luxury tax, right? You pay a little bit more on that. And then at the end of the year, you pay again if you didn't pay enough. No. This is a way, again, to manipulate the public. You know, when this all started and people were paying taxes, it was a public service. So you would pay in, and then you didn't have to worry about your trash. You got your water for free, your electricity. All of those things were included in your public service because that's what that tax, that's what that money was for, right? So yeah, it was giving up a certain percentage so that somebody else could handle all those things and you didn't have to worry about it. Score on. That's not what's happening anymore. They contracted out, they're third-partying everything and double, triple, quadruple dipping us for our tax money, right? By allowing these private organizations to also collect the tax money and then tax us again through purchases. And it's just horrific. It's not right. And we as Americans, we're the only ones who can stop it. We're the only ones who can say, no, we are not going to do this. And it can't just be 1 or 2 or 3 because they come in and just run them over. It has to be the populace saying, we're not going to do this anymore. We're going to take it back because we are the people, and that's what the founders wanted us to be. Anyway, now that I've thrown up on everybody about the Federal Reserve, I hope you have a fantastic Sunday, and I'll see y'all later.